Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Grossman Files. We got a great one for you today. Yes. We got a great one for you today. And what are we doing today? Well, there was a brief moment in my latest live stream when we were reading these ridiculously narcissistic blogs by the mass murderer and fake Christian. At least that's my opinion. David Berkowitz, when I actually called out into the audience for my man Nuke Hoax. I said, Nuke Hoax, if you're listening, call in. And I guess Nuke Hoax wasn't listening because he didn't call in. But I got in touch with the man himself today, and he is waiting patiently backstage to join us. And of course, Nuke Hoax is one of the new fresh faces on the scene. A person whose mind I actually really respect. In fact, I was doing a live stream recently with Mike Lorenzo, and even the great Mike Lorenzo was like, yo, I like this kid. He's like, was he a cop? So this kid's got a great mind for analysis. And he also has nice things to say about me. So we like him here over at the Grossman Files. And generally, this guy doesn't deal with Son of Sam, but when he does, he actually has very relevant things to say. I enjoy his analysis a lot. So we want to show Nuke Hoax some love out here today. And thank you to everybody who's watching. We got Derek in the good evening, people of the so-called world. We got Nicosmas, we got Alejandro, and we got Victoria and Brian the kitty all the way from England, SNK, and the gang's all here. So listen, as you all know, it ain't about me. It's about we. So let me bring on the man of the hour. Y'all don't know him, but you're gonna know him and you're gonna love him. May I present to you the one, the only Nuke Hoax 2024, aka Vince McConnell. Yo, what's up, Nuke Hoax? How you doing, brother?
What's up, Manny? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, in fact, you know what? We should have done this before the show, but turn your gain down just slightly. You're a little hot.
How about right now?
It's getting a little better, and if we have to do it, you'll lower it a little bit more. So welcome to our airwaves, Nuke Hoax. Of course, you're sort of a stranger. We did one show I did with Gary, I think it was, where we were analyzing some other blog where Berkowitz was constantly talking about toothaches.
Yeah,
and you had called in, and you did such a great job that I was looking very forward to having you back. So this was a great opportunity. So before we get started, Nuke, why don't you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself, what you do, your channel, and so on and so forth, and then we'll get into the meat of the matter.
Well, basically what got me into doing true crime online is I discovered the Zodiac killer case, and long story as short as humanly possible, I was researching it for like a couple of years, like probably 2 years or so, had got a whole bunch of stuff to say. And then, so by the time that I showed up online, I already had like this arsenal of information and some strong opinions. And then kind of got mixed up in that realm with Zodiac, but the community just kind of devolved, went a little bit crazy, got crazier over time. And then I branched out. So there's a lot of Iran stuff on my channel. Of course, he's been caught. So
hold on. What's Iran?
The East Area Rapist Original Night Stalker. It's some people may know that case better as the Golden State Killer.
That's that dude D'Angelo.
Yeah, and then in that respect, it's like your show where the guy's already been caught, and we're trying to correct kind of the historical record, because you know how even once we get a solution in these cases, we still have to work through a whole bunch of myths. And so some people like to think, oh, once we catch the guy, the case is over, and that's generally very far from the truth. I mean, look at how you've corrected the historical record in Son of Sam. Before you came along with your document dumps and all this other stuff, like the cult narrative was so much more prevalent. And now we're at a point where it's very obvious that that's a completely just fantasy story. And I think that narrative's going away, and that's a direct result of what you've been doing online. And so even though we have a solved case, we still need historians to come along and say, hey, we don't actually know this and that and the other. And I think that sometimes the hard work really just begins when we identify the offender, because then we have.
So what are the main issues in the Iran case that you're dealing with?
Well, biggest thing is holdback. Because he was a police officer, we're not getting a lot of information released. And you have your average true crime myths. There's some stuff in there about him getting into a fight with one of the murder victims. I don't believe that narrative. It's a very complicated case. But when he got caught and was identified, everyone said, oh, cool, we can all go home now. And so they just kind of left it at that. And as you've seen in the Son of Sam, there's a lot of correction to do in the historical record, even after someone's been captured. So right now I got a campaign going to help us identify the I-70 killer. That's a defender who was operating across the Midwest. I got a nice little cardboard sign up here. Just trying to get some publicity in that case, because I think that the answer in that case is publicity. And we're just...
So I-70 is a totally different case from Iran.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you got me in a lot of trouble. You had sent a letter to David Berkowitz, and we're going to start out the show with that. But just quickly to your point, in a way, I have to thank Maury Terry. People say to me, oh, Manny, if it wasn't for Maury Terry, you wouldn't have a show. And I freely say, yeah, of course, because this dude came around and lied so colossally to us. I didn't that we had to correct the record. If he hadn't come around, really, nobody would be talking about Son of Sam 50 years later, certainly not to the extent that we have been. And we would never have gotten these document dumps put out. And so it's definitely fun to revisit these old cases and to come up with new stuff. So we applaud you for that. But you got me in trouble. You sent this letter to Berkowitz. It freaked out all his degenerate fans, the members of his fan club. By the way, have you heard that one of those people actually accosted Wendy Savino in a library? Did you hear about that?
Oh, I vaguely, I think it might have been from you that I heard that. But it doesn't surprise me at all, because we have a lot of lunatics in true crime, and like the nature of the things that we're talking about. I think with these brutal random murders, it tends to attract crazy people. And then those crazy people take their insanity from the internet into the real world. And that's sad to hear that, because she's such a nice, just friendly old British lady that I hate to see that to her.
Yeah. And the reason why I bring him up is because he was one of the people who found out about this letter that we're about to show the audience, and you're going to read it, and then you'll tell the story about it. But this is kind of just a little preview as to what we're going to be mainly be getting into the two blogs today, and then of course, just for the audience's sake, we're going to show Nuke Hoax is going to do a very condensed version of his analysis of the Savino sketch, which Mike Lorenzo in particular found to be very, very great. And so did I. But yeah, this guy, Frank DeGennaro, talked about this letter, and everybody said, Manny wrote it, or Manny put this guy up to it. And nobody could quite get their story straight. So let's show... Let's show the audience this famous letter that you sent to David Berkowitz. And I know that you say you mentioned me in it, and I don't take any, to preface it, I don't take any offense at my name being brought up, and your analysis of the way I think of it and of the way I think of things, because unlike what people say, I don't get offended very easily. So here is the letter. And if you wouldn't mind, why don't you, since you wrote it, why don't you first tell the story? Like, how did this come to pass? And then you'll talk, and then you'll read it and talk about it.
I think it must have been right after our stream, because you'll notice there's a PS about the toothache in there. So it must have been moments later, And I know that Berkowitz had been doing his whole like writing ministry where he was being quite communicative, and I think still is with the outside world. And so I was thinking, well, I'm going to write a letter to David Berkowitz and see if he writes me back. But you got to I want the audience to understand, because some of the things I'm going to say in here, I do want to say is me bullshitting Berkowitz a little bit, because with a guy like this, if you don't stroke his ego, and surprisingly, when I did stroke his ego and he still got mad, I thought that if I give him a little bit of kind of a supportive tone, then there's a better chance of this being received well. And I couldn't believe how the reaction was so disproportionate to the content of this letter that I was like, did these people read the letter like the same thing that I wrote? Because it's insane. Like
it doesn't matter to these people. Chances are they didn't read it. If they read it, they didn't understand it. And but yeah, Berkowitz got very mad at this, and his friends got very mad at it. They all circled the wagons. One of them accused me of writing it when I had no idea that I actually did a live stream a video from Untermeyer Park about this about a year ago now, where I said, no, I didn't write the Son of Sam, but if I did, here's what I would ask him. And it was a kind of I took a little departure point from your letter, but why don't you read the letter to the audience, and then we will, can you see it on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So read it and I'll scroll up when we're ready.
Okay. Dear David, first thing I want to point out is look at that Word document processor precision that was traced on my monitor just to freak him out. Dear David, I am writing to you to establish a line of communication which I hope can be returned in your free time. I am curious to learn about the spiritual influences which played a role in the various mistakes you made many years ago, which resulted in your current incarceration and your role in the historical annals of true crime. If you would like to talk about these things, I have some questions for you regarding the nature of the entities which pressured you into premeditated shootings. I understand that what I am about to say next might be a sensitive topic for you. Didn't understand, apparently. But I am an online acquaintance of a YouTube researcher of your case by the name of Manny Grossman. I would like to tell you off the record that I truly believe Mr. Grossman is only very passionate about his opinions and that he does not fully or completely understand or sympathize with the spiritual plight you faced, and thus takes a rather judgmental approach to the actions from which you have rehabilitated yourself. There are many people in this world, Mr. Berkowitz, who think that your discussion of the demonic realm which tempted you is some kind of means by which to offload all responsibility or accountability. I am not one of those people, David. If you would write me back, I am very interested in the ways in which these entities tempted you so as to better understand the nature of their operation and warn the world accordingly of the very real threat to humanity. Thank you in advance. Sincerely, your brother in Christ, Vincent. P.S. I hope your toothache is feeling better.
That's classic, man. That's hilarious. So needless to say, you didn't get a response to this.
Yeah, well, I got a crazy response via email, not from Berkowitz, but the way that these people acted, it's like they acted like I sent him a death threat. I mean, this is the most friendly letter ever written. It's mind-blowing.
It actually is very, very well. You made one cardinal error. You put my name in there.
True.
I don't know if you know the extent to which, well, actually, you'll get an idea when you read the blogs today, but I don't know if you have quite an idea of the extent of Berkowitz's hatred for me personally. So what happened after this? You got, did you get any cease and desist letters from this?
I didn't get cease and desist, but I got pretty much as close to that as you can get with email. I'd never heard of this Chris person before in my life. Am I allowed to say names on here?
Yeah, of course. Just so everyone knows, we're talking about the crazy, insane lunatic EDP from Olathe, Kansas, named Chris Claw, who has a blog, Criminal Justice Chris, who constantly is obsessed with what I'm doing. So carry on.
Yeah, so I'd never heard of this person before, and they emailed me and they were like, oh, I'm one of his spiritual advisors, and how dare you send a letter like this? I want you to understand that David Berkowitz has never been so disturbed. And your freaky Zodiac killer style letter with the tracing and all that, and they just were going off on me. And I kind of had forgotten what I'd actually written. And so I was like, is it bad? And I remember the Untermeyer video you're talking about where you're in the park, and I was like, oh no, am I in trouble here? Like, what did I write? And they just went off on me. And there was like these long emails. I know that I'm probably opening myself up to even more.
Oh, definitely. You're going to have a blog written about
now. Yeah. And by the way, that blog, Criminal Justice, it's like, you don't even know what you're talking about. Like, can you just not, it was,
well, we're We're going to show it today, a little bit of it. But yeah, well, I have a saying, the longer your email, the crazier you are. So, I mean, this is SNK has got it right. She's a groupie for a serial killer. She needs help. It's sick. Yeah, it's absolutely sick.
Yeah.
Aren't Christians supposed to turn the other cheek and not react? I don't know. Probably. I don't know. I don't know anything about Christianity, so I can't answer that.
That's why I can take a more sympathetic approach to the stuff that Berkowitz is saying, because even though I don't think he should ever be returned to society, or that he should ever be allowed to wield a firearm or interact with the rest of the world again, I do believe that everyone can spiritually redeem themselves. It doesn't, of course, make their murders morally right. And of course, they need to be removed from society. They need to be held accountable, all that kind of stuff. And so I can be a little more simple. Like, I didn't even expect that Berkowitz was going to be disturbed by this. I thought he would be like, oh, sure. Let me tell you stories about the Untermeyer minions that put me up to this. And, who knows what he was going to say. And then when I heard he was disturbed, I was like, yes, I fucking disturbed the son of Sam. That's awesome, dude.
And that's only a fraction of what I've done to the guy.
I know, poor guy.
And speaking of which, yeah, so we actually want to get your reaction, the Nuke Hoax reaction to the 2 blogs that he wrote about me personally, and called Loving My Enemies and Thanking My Enemies. And for those of you who missed the show last week about these, but yeah, your reaction to these is what I really wanted to get. So Zen says, "Oh my God, now you made me feel bad. My email is kind of long." So yeah, just always remember, especially when you're writing, this is not for you, Nuke Hoax, but this is for the audience. This is just an etiquette thing in terms of email, and really any writing that you do if you don't know the person. The longer your email, the crazier you are. Try to keep it succinct. Try to keep it short and sweet. Nobody has time to read a million paragraphs. And and so that's all we got to say. So what does Zen says here? I guess I can understand that killing people is terrible, but I guess if you decide not to do that anymore, you could be redeemed or something. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I don't I'm not saying, oh, I forgive this and what he did is okay, and I can't speak for God or Jesus or anything. But either way, he's right where he needs to be, and he should never be let out of prison, because he's already proven to us that when he's in a civilized society, the things that he does are absolutely horrible. And killing people is horrible. There are people who are blinded and paralyzed from this fucking guy. I mean, the whole situation, like what he's done to society, proves to us that he should never be in society again.
Yeah, I mean, the trauma even of the Neto family that wasn't like their dog was shot and killed, and they were terrorized with Molotov cocktail and with letters. They still feel this trauma to this day. I mean, it's palpable. Anytime Maria Neto talks, she starts crying about it. So Near Gutter's Path is a great commenter. Let's see what he says. The 8th commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness, or in other words, no lying. Berkey isn't redeemed until he fessed up the fraud he perpetrated with Maury Terry. Yeah, he only has half done that. He's told Mike Caparelli. Do you know that? Do you know about that book, Monster Mirror?
No, but I've heard you talk about it was Inside Edition, where he went on there and talked about the cult and
No. There's a book that came out in 2023 by Mike Caparelli, PhD. He calls himself Berkowitz's spiritual counselor.
The guy that was on Frangies with him.
Correct, and he was even briefly in the Netflix documentary at the end, talking about Savino, and he got Berkowitz to fess that he did it alone, that he was the lone shooter. But Berkowitz hedged. He still talked about, but I was hanging out in Untermeyer Park with 2 brothers and Carlton Gajdusek, who was Moloch. So he was like, he only went halfway.
Yeah, I agree with that, by the way, too, with Near Gutter's Path. You're right about that. He's still trying to muddy the waters. He's still trying to effectively lie. And we're going to see some of that, I think, on here. I mean, he's saying he's loved my enemies, thanking my enemies. And then you can tell there's just so much visceral hatred for Manny. It's like, what about loving my enemies? It's right there in the title.
Hold on. All right. So why don't you read it? Read the whole thing and then react to it.
All right. You have heard the law that says, love your neighbor, but hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Matthew 5:43, 44. I don't know what that NLT stands for, but I am sure there are people in this world who don't have enemies. Lucky for them. While there are others who have maybe only one or two, I think they're very fortunate. But with me, it's not the case. I've got many enemies who hate me with a passion. Day and night, they wish me ill will and hope that I die. But that's okay. I understand. Frankly, their hatred is justified. I took innocent lives. I caused grief to many families, bringing them horrific levels of pain, sorrow, and heartache. How I regret this. But my crimes cannot be undone. No amount of tears can wash away my bloody past. I have to live with the consequences, and that's reality. Yet in the process of time, when I was about 10 years into my prison sentence, I had a life-changing encounter with the Lord Jesus Christ. I repented of my sins and invited Messiah Jesus to come into my heart. It was then when I began to understand the enormity of what my criminal acts had done. Nevertheless, while I know God has forgiven me because his word in the Holy Bible make it plain, society has not been as forgiving. Neither have the families who lost a loved one, nor those who were injured. Even other individuals who, having no relationship with any of the victims or their families, have to this very day continued to spew forth hatred towards me. Some, out of meanness, are even trying to accuse me of other crimes which I never committed, if only to make trouble for me. And that's the Savino part. But thanks to Christ, I want to take the higher road. I want to forgive my persecutors, and by the grace of God I have. They wish me harm, yet I forgive them. I truly do, and I will continue to pray for them. May they make their peace with God like I did. So be it. Amen. David Berkowitz.
So what are your thoughts on this?
What do you even say about it? It's like, and it's crazy. Anytime he writes, there's a lot of contradiction that appears to come out, at least at first glance, like, right. You can see contradictions, like saying, I say, love your enemies, pray those who persecute you. But then he also says their hatred is justified. Well, justified would indicate that he agrees with it. And so if that's the case, then that's a direct contradiction to loving your enemies. And I see this a lot with Berkowitz in his writings. Like, he'll say one thing and then he'll say something a paragraph later that, whether subtly or directly, contradicts itself. And I think what he's doing is he's passing time mostly. I mean, if I were in Shagawonk for 1,000 years, I would be writing long-winded testimonies like this too, because what's he going to do all day? And Zent says this guy is a psychopath. He doesn't mean any of that. I don't know. Am I allowed to read chats?
Of course.
Okay. Lack of admission of his crimes didn't match. Yeah, that's the thing with him. Like, there is another thing. He talks about being that, like, he's been completely redeemed and he's found peace in Jesus Christ. And then he'll also talk about how tortured and suffering he is. And it's like, if
I agree.
If you found peace in Jesus Christ, then what are you crying about? Like, just to understand why you've been removed from society because of the fucking things that you've done. And we can't trust someone like that. You lose your privileges, you know?
I agree with that 100%. Yeah, he doesn't seem to be too confident in his Christianity and too comfortable with it. If he's constantly fighting to love his enemies, shouldn't he have been over that by now? Shouldn't that have happened like in 1987 when he was converted? Like, shouldn't it have occurred then? I don't know. So typical narcissistic behavior, implying he's implying he's better than others because he found God and hoping you do too someday.
Yeah.
So any other comments on this?
Oh, and yeah, of course, are trying to accuse me of other crimes which I never committed. We know which you did, Berkowitz. I mean, we know that's what's up with Savino. And of course, you exposed this to the world, and I know how convinced you are, and I'm convinced, and we know what you did with Savino, and he won't admit it.
And he thinks that I did it out of meanness.
No, he did it in a historical quest for the truth, to clarify narratives and expose what really happened.
Exactly. And also to give this woman the peace and talking about peace. This woman wanted peace and closure of 50 years of talking about this and nobody ever believing her.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that was good. Let's read the other one here. So that was loving. This is, yeah. So now first he loves me and now he's now he's thanking me. All right. Hit it.
All right. God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. Matthew 5:11-12 NLT. In my previous journal entry, I wrote on how the Lord is teaching me to love my enemies, how I should be merciful to them and pray for them, just as the Lord himself did with me when I was a lost soul who was living in open rebellion towards him. In years past, I hated God. I was convinced he hated me as well. And in my stupidity, I was even involved in Satan worship, where I unwittingly opened myself up to demonic control. Control is a strong word. Yet, had it not been for God's mercy, I would later realize that I would probably be in hell right now. So, as I pondered these things, it dawned on me that I should not only be praying for my enemies, but thanking them as well. Why? Because by putting up with their hatred, harassment, and absurd accusations, my heavenly Father has assured me that I will be rewarded for every unkind word that has been spoken or written against me. Yes, I believe this to be true. In the scriptures, God's word declares how there will be rewards awaiting those who get bad-mouthed and lied about because of their faithful stand for Jesus Christ. And the gospel, see what Jesus says about this in Matthew 5:10-12, in the gospel. Wow, all these haters and troublemakers who blast away at me with cruel comments and condemnation are really helping to bless me with rewards of jewels and crowns and accolades from the Lord himself that will be mine for all eternity. Therefore, what can I say to those who hate and despise me and openly slander me? To them I say, thank you, David Berkowitz. Yeah, look at all the crowns that you've got him.
He's gonna get crowns. It's all, and it's like it's all about him. It's
yeah, that's a bad one.
Yeah. All right. Expand on that a little bit.
So that's where his true colors really start popping out, is how this is all for such selfish gain. Like he wants all these jewels and rewards and I think the only reason, and this is my opinion, I can't speak for God or the true intentions of David Berkowitz. In my opinion, though, that Berkowitz is only declaring that he's been redeemed because he believes that there's something in it for him. And I was taught by a lot of wise men, wise spiritual advisors, people that I've met in, AA meetings or just throughout life, that like, if you're trying to be of service for something, you don't do it for your own benefit. And you don't like announce the things that you do of service, because then you're trying to get, praise for it. And that's what we're seeing, all this stuff right here that he's telling us. His real motivation is the jewels and the crowns. I think if I were in his position and I had shot these people and I had been locked up away for 25,000 years, I would shut the hell up and not be writing these holier than thou nonsensical blog posts. And maybe he really means it, but I don't think so. And I think a lot of your viewers or all of your viewers aren't buying that crap either.
Yeah, has had 40 years to study the Bible, but he still doesn't understand some of the concepts or doesn't care.
Yeah, I think he doesn't care.
No, I mean, I think this is all one big con just to get commissary money.
Yeah, true. Making spreads and stuff in there. Dennis Leary.
But, sorry, Dennis Leary. It's everyone forgiven. David Berkowitz, not a few. But, it's funny that the narcissism that just oozes out of these pages. It's all about him and everybody persecuting him and how he's the one that's really the victim here. It's disgusting.
I'm not cream that cream. I read the Bible. We want Coke.
Do me a favor, enunciate these comments more.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was trying not to spoil. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Christian because I've read the Bible. Do we want to quote scripture? I think to even do that is really just going tangential to the real issues, because you can argue back and forth whether or not Berkowitz actually believes what he's saying. At the end of the day, this guy was going around murdering innocent people and he needs to be removed from society. And honestly, I don't even really care. I hope he's redeemed. I hope that he can find some kind of a peace, whatever, because I want that for all humanity. If he had had that before all this happened, he wouldn't have shot those people in the first place. You're never going to come back out, Berkowitz. Stop trying to sell yourself to us. you've lost those privileges. You've ruined so many lives, taken lives, damaged the quality of people's lives, and the traumas like you brought up is huge. Like, people don't live the same way after. I mean, Violante, is he blind in both eyes?
Well, he had one eye was totally blown out, just like Savino, and then the other eye is basically blind. But
it's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, the survivors have had to live with such horrific injuries, both mental and physical, for now 50 years. And there's really very little word about that in his writings. It's when he does talk. I mean, this is just my opinion, but when he does talk about his victims, it's almost as if he's detached from it, as if he didn't do it. It was somebody else.
Oh yeah, demonic control, he says.
Yeah, demonic control. Right.
He's
fobbing. Right. He's fobbing it off on that. Stacy Moskowitz's parents went to those graves believing Maury Terry's nonsense. I think actually near Gutters, Nasa Moskowitz by the end was hip. I think she realized that she had been hoosowed by Berkowitz, because she talked about how she is on record at the end saying that she believed that he did it. But yeah, Maury Terry really did a number on the victims' families. It's unbelievable stuff. But so any last words on these?
Yeah, I had kind of an epiphany right now, or a realization right now that, like, I wonder if there's a secondary motivation here in convincing people that a cult is responsible. He can keep them in fear because he's been locked away. But if the real shooter of Carl Denaro is still out there, then these people have to run around the rest of their lives looking over their shoulders about how this cult might still be coming for them. And
well,
so
go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder if he's trying to just keep people in a state of fear. With that
That's an interesting observation, because I actually am of the opinion, I never thought about it in that regard, but that Son of Sam continues to this day with these types of writings. He's still keeping people in a he's still, I put it much simpler, but yours is more elegant. I just say he's still messing with people's minds.
Yeah.
And that was part of the whole Son of Sam spree. The whole let me mess with your mind. He did it to the entire city of New York with his letters and the actions. So yeah, I think that you're right about that. And I mean, you don't have to comment on this, but I've had experiences with Carl Denaro enough to know that him and I just don't get along. Yeah. Carl Denaro, by this point, has enough knowledge in the public domain that he should know by now. He should know better that Berkowitz shot him. It's really a sad situation that he keeps on, in my opinion. And I don't expect you to comment on this. I don't want to put you on the spot, but to me, it's shocking that he continues this farce to people, that he hasn't updated his book or anything with all the new knowledge. Berkowitz wrote specifically about how he used one hand to shoot him. And Carl Denaro's entire je ne sais quoi is, my shooting was so wild, the bullets flew everywhere, that it had to be a woman who shot me.
Yeah. So he's a sexist too, huh? Women can't shoot, Carl? Is that what you're trying to
say? That's funny.
So it's sad. Yeah. I think there's PTSD involved in that.
Without a doubt.
I just can't even imagine how horrible it must be to be one of these people that they were just sitting in a car with their girlfriend or their date or their friend, and to just be open fire on like that. It's horrible.
Well, Wendy Savino actually had PTSD still to this day, I'm sure. But that Maury Terry, when he came out with his, because she collected every newspaper article there was on Son of Sam, even after the arrest and in subsequent years. I mean, her archives span till now. And so she had all of Maury Terry's articles, and that was, and she was terrified when his articles came out that there were going to be more people. And actually that was part of her whole stress response to Frank DeGennaro accosting her just a couple months ago, because she still has residues of that in her brain, that there are still people involved with this cult. So she thought that Frank DeGennaro was a member of this group. And, she actually got pneumonia from the stress of that, had to be hospitalized. I've said it to the audience, but I always repeat it because I want this guy, Frank DeGennaro, to know what he did. He actually put her in the hospital with that incident. It's disgusting.
Yeah, that's bad. I mean, she could have died from pneumonia
easily. She's almost 90 years old.
Jesus.
Yeah, he's building his own cult by brainwashing people. You know, I not often think, but sometimes, you know, I ride the same roads that David Berkowitz did, just living in the area that he lived and did his crimes in. And I sometimes think, well, what would happen if he did get out? Like, what would he think about how the world has changed? And would he even be able to function in society?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
He's like that dude from Shawshank Redemption. Well, did you see that movie?
Yeah.
Well,
he just doesn't know what to do with himself.
Yeah.
Larry Lawton is a jewel thief on YouTube that talks about, he did, I think, 20 years or 12 years in the federal prison or something for jewel theft. And when he came out of there, the institutionalization was just so insane for him. He went in line at a Subway. He had all those options to order from, and he just started crying because he didn't know what to do. And this happens a lot with convicts and people come out of prison, and they don't know how to live anymore because they're in, you know, a set way and in a cage for years and years like that. And to be released into it, the world is very different than it was in 1977.
Absolutely.
It's completely unrecognizable. I think even just the street lights or the presence of computer monitors in every room would just send him into sensory overload. I don't think he'd be able to handle it.
No.
And in one possible extreme example of what might happen is he might revert to because that's when he got back from Vietnam. He was all screwed up.
He wasn't in Vietnam, but he was in the army during that time. Yeah.
Yeah. He came back. I thought, where did I see that he'd gotten back from Vietnam? Maybe I'm thinking Taxi Driver. I don't know.
That's Taxi Driver.
Came back from the military and just the stress of like not knowing he felt very lost. He talks about that. And how does he react when he feels lost? He starts shooting people. And
good point.
Who knows what he might do? I mean, he's not too old to fire a firearm. So
no, absolutely not.
Very dangerous guy.
So Zentz is saying pneumonia is an infection. You can't get it from psychological things. What happened was he stressed her out, Zentz, so much. And I think any doctor would agree with this, that the level of stress on your body and your can affect your immune system. So we all have these viruses running through our body every day, but they're held in check by stronger immune systems. When you're stressed out, like she was after Frank DeGennaro accosted her in the library saying, David didn't do this, I'm a friend of David's, that put her into such a stressful state. She ended up succumbing to a sickness. That's what we're trying to say here, Zentz. All right, so here is the Savino sketch, and you did a
sketch.
Yeah, and you did a great presentation on this. I would actually like you to talk about this sketch and composites and why you think that this is Savino. And just real quick, this kind of you did your video on your channel, which again is Nuke Hoax Returns. I have it in the description of this video here. I want you guys to check that out. Where is Criminal Justice Chris's?
Oh no. This is going to be a fun one.
Share screen. Hold on. Why is this not showing? I don't know why. Oh, wait. Thanking my enemies. Let's get rid of that.
And I want to say for Criminal Justice Chris, you've been shadow banned from my channel or banned from my channel. I don't want your comments on there. I don't want your sentiments on there. We all know where you stand. And if you're going to align yourself with David Berkowitz, who is, for all intents and purposes, a terrorist, I'm not interested in the things that you're saying. I'm not interested in the way that you've treated Manny and anyone else who disagrees with you. And I also completely disagree with your opinions. And, I'm not trying to hide behind the shadow ban and not be, not to have enough integrity to tell it right here to the world that Chris is banned from my channel, for very good reason. And, if you want to house David Berkowitz, I would say that's a very bad idea.
Yeah, she actually says that her and her husband will take him in. For some reason, it's not allowing me to show her blog. I don't know why that is. So anyway, she did why don't we just get back to the to the sketch, and you can just reference her blog and what she talked about, but give the audience a little bit of a sort of a pseudo Cliff Notes version of why you were convinced that this was David Berkowitz.
Well, the first thing to say, anytime you're talking about composite sketches in true crime, there is a massive misinterpretation of what a composite sketch actually is. I've basically come up with this little hypothesis, this little rule of thumb to look at a sketch through the lens of there are at minimum three layers of separation between the actual likeness of an offender and his likeness in a composite sketch. The first layer of separation is that you are not. So first, what I would say is a sketch is not a photograph, and you're not looking at a photograph of the offender. You're looking at a witness's memory. Then that witness's memory is translated to an artist who's interpreting it through their brain. And then you have, and this is only at minimum, another layer of separation that you're dealing with the artistic style of that artist. So you have at minimum three factors that are going to take you one step away from the actual photographic likeness of an offender. And in true crime, we have all these people saying, oh, my suspect looks like the sketch. My suspect is identical to the sketch. Well, if you really understand what a composite sketch is, then if your offender looks like the sketch, he's probably, or if your suspect looks like the sketch, your suspect's probably not the guy from the sketch. Because it's not identical. It's not supposed to be identical. It's supposed to give us a rough understanding of what this person looks like. We know from this sketch that we're not looking for a 5'4" Vietnamese man. We're looking for a white male, and there's a written description below that to give you an understanding. It's meant to give you a category of what this person. So they're saying he's a white male adult. He's about 30 years old, 5'9", approximately 160 pounds, and he might look something like this. And so Criminal Justice Chris has this whole breakdown on their site doing Chat GPT analyses of this sketch and how it doesn't look exactly like David Berkowitz. Of course it doesn't look exactly like David Berkowitz. It's a drawing.
Right. And just as an aside, you can put Chat GPT in anything. I had somebody, my friend Ruby, write a Chat GPT about why it does look exactly like Berkowitz, and it was the same. It was the same thing, except just the opposite of what Criminal Justice Chris put up. All right, so carry on. People are really liking this. People are really liking what you're saying.
I like what Sink says there, that most sketches aren't really very helpful in reality, but damn, this is a good one. I totally agree. This is an incredible composite sketch of David Berkowitz.
Well, you know what Mike Lorenzo had to say about that? He said that in his experience, and remember, this is a 20-year veteran detective, first grade detective, that it was always the older victims who gave the best sketches.
Oh, that's interesting.
And Wendy was 39 when she was shot. So, he attributed some of that to that.
That's cool. Yeah, it's very good, actually. I mean, most times you get a composite sketch, they don't even look this good. This is actually and I know this is how you discovered the case. You found this sketch in an old random shooting case file. And I think you talked about how this just struck you that this looks like Berkowitz.
Well, I thought, wow, this is Berkowitz, but this is a sketch I never saw. And then I looked at the date; it said 5/5/76. So I shit canned it. I said, nah, this is before Son of Sam.
Yeah.
This can't be him because this was before the first shooting. And I just put it away. And then I found a DD5, a New York Police Department detective report, that this was attached to, that said, hey, look at this. This happened a few months ago, but it's very similar to the Donna Lauria case, the first one. So why don't you take a look at it? So that's what got the wheels going between me and Lorenzo, the sketch coupled with the detective report, because people beef on me. Oh yeah, you're making this up for clout. It was actually a New York City police detective who made the original connection back in 1976.
Wow.
So carry on. I'm loving this.
Okay, so this is another composite of David Berkowitz. I believe that does in fact represent David Berkowitz, and you can see that the first one looks more like Berkowitz, in my opinion, than the second one does. I do believe that they both represent the same man. Um, One thing that I say with composites is that the value of a composite sketch comes not from the appearance of any one illustration, but from similar recurring features across numerous illustration composites. And so if you have 20 sketches from different places and each one shows us a similar nose, for example, then we can start to arrive at what may be a more accurate understanding of what that offender's nose looks like, because every time he's sketched, he has this type of nose, for example. What I can tell you right off the bat from looking at these is this offender probably has a protruding lower lip. This offender has this kind of long nose, and then it gets kind of bulbous towards the end. And then, in fact, look at each one has the age lines in the same place going from the nose like this. There's so many similarities in these composites. And while Berkowitz doesn't look like the exact identical spitting image of any one of those sketches, if you look at a photo of David Berkowitz, you'll see that some of those recurring features that stand out the most throughout these sketches are aspects of David Berkowitz's appearance that you notice when you look at a photo of him. Look at the nose in each one of those sketches that you have on the screen there, all 5 of them. It's a very similar type of nose. I think that with the exception being maybe that third one looks a little more beaky, kind of more bulbous there. But there are total similarities in here. And I think that what he's doing, what I think is his most effective subterfuge across these offenses, is how he changes his hairstyle.
Right,
Because
exactly.
hairstyle is huge. You can change someone's hair in a composite sketch, and the difference is striking. But they're all easily possible hairstyle changes.
Well, what I find interesting is so this is the Savino sketch in May of done in May of 76. That she was shot in April of 76. This first one, Nuke, is the Donna Loria shooting, which took place in July of 76. And look at the hair growth. I mean, again, it's not a photograph, but that's indicative. Like, the hair was longer, which would make sense if the hair was shorter in April than it was in July. And this is definitely David Berkowitz, because he even to Maury Terry, he admitted the Donna Loria shooting. So we're looking here at Berkowitz, and I think, of course, that, like you say, this is the Savino sketch looks the most like him.
Yeah, it's better than that other one, than the Loria sketch. The Donna Loria sketch, which we know is Berkowitz, looks less like David Berkowitz than the Savino sketch.
Exactly. So the hairstyle you were talking about, the lower lip, the nose, carry on. I'm loving this.
Yeah, if you look at his lower lip in each one of these, it's kind of protruding. It's not major. It's not like this, but there's a protruding lower lip. There are similarities in these sketches that I think it would just take some time to really start breaking things down. And of course, a lot of this is subjective. Like, if someone might agree or little subtle changes, like the Donna Loria sketch, you can see the eyes are moved a little higher up than the second one next to it. And little subtle changes like that have a massive effect on what a person looks like. I mean, anyone out there that doesn't understand this concept of composite sketch, learn how to draw a human face and then start playing around with where you put those features. Draw your friends and move their eyes a little bit, move them up a little bit, and you're gonna be blown away how it fails to look like your friend.
I used to have this video game where you could create faces of, like, the baseball player that you wanted. I think it was like, MLB for PlayStation 2. And you could do that. You could have the same face, but change the eyes a little bit, and it would change the entire face.
Yep.
Just making a different set of eyes, or making a slightly thicker nose. And of course, that's the whole concept behind plastic surgery as well. So, but I'm noticing the sensual lips. Look at that jutting out lip at the bottom. Look at that rubbery, sensual lip at the Savino. These two are the same shooter, just different composites, and they both have a thicker lower lip, as does this one.
Yeah.
As does this one. This is
Yeah.
Voskerichian, as does this one. This
So
one
that
looks
protruding lower lip is the first thing to notice that is starting to really recur in these sketches. And that's going to tell us that it's most likely that the offender that we're looking for probably has a protruding lower lip.
right, which of course Berkowitz absolutely has, and kind of hard to see in this one. But I found this to be quite amazing. Actually, I've admitted this once, but this was actually a video that came out before I discovered Savino. So somebody else had used that Savino sketch and did this and
That's
thought the same.
crazy.
Yeah, and it was seeing this and this YouTube video, Son of Sam, and seeing this mashup here that made me go back and look at the sketch again.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, this is unbelievable. Talk about this mashup for a minute.
That's mind-blowingly close. I mean, it almost makes you wonder, has this been altered in any way? Because it's too perfect.
I think it has been. I think they took away the widow's peak.
Okay.
If you notice, the Savino sketch has a more pronounced widow's peak. It definitely has been altered in that way, but I think that's the only alteration.
Wow. Yeah,
I think
Savino did an incredible job of describing her shooter to the sketch artist, because it's so close. It stands out as among one of the better composite sketches in true crime history, I think. And
I agree.
To have people saying, "Oh, it doesn't look like him," it's like, that looks better than most composites, like, by far.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And you know, the only people who say these things are people who just hate me personally. But you know, NYPD agreed with me, Bronx DA agreed with me, first grade detective Mike Lorenzo agreed with me. And of course, people who, like, you and I are friends, but you're not necessarily going to agree with me on everything because you have your own mind.
Yeah.
I didn't influence you in this in any way, shape, or form. You just happened to look at this with an objective eye. So let's read what some of the people are saying. The consistent thing in all the sketches was his dense, thick hair. Also, the ears never stuck out in any sketches. Any comment on that?
Yeah, it's a good observation. I haven't, of course, made every observation about looking at these composites. And I like that when we do that in true crime, when people start understanding what they're actually looking for and then working together to establish actual truths. And, you know, there's going to be observations that Chocolick is going to make that I don't see right away, or there's going to be things that you see that I don't see. And when we get our heads together and we start getting a good understanding of some of these details, but the first and most important thing is to actually understand what it is that you're analyzing. And if people are going to say, "Oh, well, this doesn't look identical to David Berkowitz," then clearly, to me, that person doesn't actually know what a composite sketch is. It's a good experiment to do. Like, get a friend of yours to think of an actor, and then, you know, if you draw human faces, if anyone out there draws human faces, try this experiment for yourself. Have your friend think of an actor, describe the actor to you, and have you sketch that face. And then when you're done and you're ready to call it, then you look at the picture of the actor. My wife and I do this for me to practice my composite sketches. And you look at it at the end, and you're going to see how close you got or how far you got. And hopefully that can help people understand the nature of a composite sketch. They're not photographs.
Right, exactly. I think that's the main takeaway. You did one of me, I remember seeing on your channel. Do you have that one handy?
Good. No, it wasn't very good.
It wasn't very good. It looked very much like, it looked a lot like Billy the Artist's rendition of me.
Yeah. You're hard one to do, by the way.
I put in it's that half Jewish, half Puerto Rican thing going on.
That's it.
So I put in the link in the comment section if anybody wants to call in. So anything else you want to talk about here?
Am I going too far off topic by telling these people that it isn't the sketch by itself that's convincing us that David Berkowitz shot Wendy Savino?
No, please tell your opinions of the case in general. I'll just keep my mouth shut.
Okay, so the sketch is all well and good. Let's remove the sketch completely from the discussion and say modus operandi, signature, and geography. These three things are going to be very powerful indicators of connecting criminal offenses together. Modus operandi for the Savino shooter, looking at this by itself, what does this offender do? He approaches a parked car. Someone's sitting in a parked car at night. He comes up to the car, unloads the firearm, laughing as he's doing it, and then leaves the scene.
Smiling is more accurate.
Okay,
Although
smiling.
he did laugh, but smiling.
Yeah. Coming in up to the scene of this crime and just doing this seemingly random shooting. Now, of course, the people who think that Berkowitz didn't shoot Savino are going to argue all day and night that there was a targeted reason why she was shot, is the mafia, all this nonsense that they're going to put in. But the modus operandi of approaching a parked car and unloading a firearm into that car, well, what did the son of Sam do? The son of Sam approached parked cars and unloaded firearms. So check one. That's signature.
And also, real quick before you get into the second one, the check two, in the Netflix documentary, and Detective Klein told this to me. Of course, this was one of the reasons why he was so interested in this. He said that in his, and he repeated this in the Netflix doc, in his experience, it's unheard of stranger shootings to just go up to a closed window, and shoot through the window of people that you don't know. It's extremely rare.
Yep.
He says the only cases he ever heard about were son of Sam, and it really has not happened since. Targeted shootings, yes, people who know each other, but stranger shootings, it's extremely rare. So that speaks to your point as well.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone out there thinks that this is more common than it is, like, do you know anyone that this has happened to? You ever seen this happen? It's very, very rare. And to happen in what is right in a son of Sam hunting ground, right in his little area, 2-3 months before the Donna Loria shooting. I mean, this is not your everyday thing. People aren't just going around shooting into cars at random. It's very rare. And when they do, they generally become infamous because it's not common. We hear about it, and a lot of people talk about how Son of Sam was a copycat of the Zodiac Killer in many ways. And it's so rare that you generally don't hear about it. And to have it happen in the same area at the same time with a smaller caliber weapon, and we could get into that too. He's using a 38 at Savino. The victim 32. Survives. Oh, 32. 32. Okay, 32 at Savino. The victim survives. What does he do? He upgrades to a 44 because the victim survived. So we're seeing that pattern of adaptation. It's kind of subtle there. But he also hadn't seen Taxi Driver at that point. When he saw a Taxi Driver, he that gave him that notion as well. Yeah, it's interesting. And we saw that in the Zodiac case. He starts with the 22, he goes to a 9mm. As contingencies arise, offenders are going to adapt and change. And for people to say, well, he didn't use a 44, he used a 32, I say, so what? There's too much else to look at. Like, this is very rare. And what I would say with signature here is kind of, why does an offender do it? Not how does he do it? That's our modus operandi, but why does he do it? What internal need is like being fulfilled by this offender's actions? And it's to achieve a personal sense of thrill or a personal sense of accomplishment from shooting a random person. And he's at the Savino scene, this offender, smiling, unloading the firearm into the car. That's telling us his motivation right there. That there's, I don't want to say sexual because that gets misinterpreted by people and they assume that has to involve some kind of a sexual assault, but there is a sexual type thrill of fulfilling this inner desire to kill that we're seeing at the Savino crime scene because we have a smiling offender. The mafia, I don't even want it. The mafia thing is such a distraction. That's not how they
talk about it. Talk about it. That's what we're here to talk about. I mean,
I really don't think this is a mafia hit. I don't think this is how the mafia kills people. And if it was, we would have heard about it from the plethora of mafia whistleblowers that have been on YouTube talking about their crime spree. We would have heard about the Savino event. And the best motivation they have is, well, this guy stole a calculator one time. It's like, it's just insane. It's completely insane, but it's in New York and you guys have a reputation over there. Everything that happens is the mafia.
It's funny. I was speaking to somebody recently and I'm going to have this person on at some point on my channel, but Savino was well known. The Savino shooting was well known, especially in that particular area of the Bronx. Everybody had heard about it. So it wasn't this isolated thing that nobody heard about it. So to your point, if this had been a mafia hit, somebody would have talked. And also, when are the mobsters shooting wives in parked cars? Like, when
That's
is
not
that
how they do it.
happening? Yeah.
If they want to wax Savino, you're probably not going to find the body. We hear about that a lot. The bodies just go missing, and they're doing these execution style shootings. They're very clearly defined reasoning behind them. They're passed through this council of guys. You got to get approval. You got to do all this. There's more than one. This is not how the mob operates, from my understanding.
And also just take it back to Elemental 101. First, you'd have to prove that her husband was a mobster of such monumental importance that his wife deserved to be shot.
Yeah. Why is he not shot?
Right. Why is it? And then what they do is what they say is, well, because he owed money, man. And if you shoot him, then you lose the money. Okay, if you want to say that, that's fine. So yeah, carry on, man. I'm loving what you're saying. I'm loving your analysis of this.
So for people who don't understand this, that when the mafia kills you because you owe money, it's not because they want to get their money back. It's because they want to show other people that you don't rob us. If you rob us, you get killed. So they're not expecting to get their freaking money back when they kill you. They don't care. They have enough money as it is. It's the principle. The Neon says we have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, all right. Neo's hates my guts. He actually thinks that I stole all his work.
Oh, geez.
Anyway, he doesn't believe.
Why does he hate you then?
Well, we used to work. We used to work together, and then he stopped talking to me, and then he went on a tirade saying how I stole everything from him. But whatever, we'll let him talk. So carry on with what you were saying.
No, I appreciate and I like when someone comes along and tells me I don't know something, because then I get to learn something new. So if you're saying that we don't know what we're talking about, that's great. I've pointed out in true crime sometimes, because people have a hard time admitting when they're wrong in true crime. And I've tried to tell people it's actually better to be wrong than it is to be right, because then you have an option you can rule out. You know, if Savino wasn't shot by Berkowitz, and you can prove that, and we're waiting for the proof, we would love to see some exculpatory evidence that rules out David Berkowitz. If you have that, show us, because then we can rule that possibility out. And that, of course, exculpatory evidence has never manifested. We're manipulating the sketches, he says. I like that.
I'm gonna have to take him out soon, because he's becoming too much of a distraction. But yeah, okay. How are we manipulating the sketch? I didn't draw this sketch. I didn't know.
How dare you, Manny? You stole his work and manipulated the sketch.
I manipulated the sketch.
If we did that, it would look more like Berkowitz, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah. Why would I manipulate the sketch to look less like him? So yeah. So anyway, carry on with you. So you were saying, so modus operandi, place of occurrence, and signature.
Geography. Yeah, these are things that are used in. He says, get evidence. This is the evidence. This is used to connect crime sprees. If you need some supplemental research to go with that, you can look at how the East Area Rapist was connected to the original Night Stalker. It was before DNA. There were detectives that were saying this is the same guy. And how did they do that? They did that with modus operandi. They did that with signature. They did that. These are things that are considered very valuable in criminal investigation. If you have a random guy, and who is this guy? He never reoffends. He didn't offend before. Who is he?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Where's the identical twin to Berkowitz, who used the same MO and the same geography and the same kill zone at the same time period, but then never does it again and never shows his head? But then David Berkowitz just happens 3 months later to start an extremely rare identical pattern of shooting. Yeah. And that's evidence, Neo. And as Mike Lorenzo, who I highly doubt, Neo, that you would say anything negative about Mike Lorenzo. As Mike Lorenzo said, that he's convicted people in court on evidence even less than this, and that the eyewitness testimony is evidence. And Neo, why don't you tell Wendy that she's lying? Because all I'm doing is telling her story, Neo. Tell Wendy that she's lying, because she's the person that came up with this in 1977, and all I did was be the vessel through which her story was told. Me and Lorenzo.
Yeah, and I doubt that Wendy Savino studies the modus operandi of criminal offenders. I think that she was an innocent woman who was shot at, and usually when that happens, someone's not going to come forward and say, that's the guy that shot me. And it just so happens that all the modus operandi, circumstantial evidence, timeline, the signature of the offense, like why he's doing it, how he's doing it, is all going to line up. It's ridiculous, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the real crime is that the fact that the Bronx DA didn't do anything with her information. I just recently did a show about how another family came forth and said that Berkowitz killed their in this case, it was the brother of the person who came forward, that Berkowitz physically assaulted this person while he was at a VA hospital, and the guy died as a result of his injuries. And that case, as opposed to Wendy Savino's, that case was taken extremely seriously and investigated thoroughly, so much so that the local congressman got involved. I just recently did a show about that. I don't believe Berkowitz did it, showing again that I'm not trying to find victims just for the finding victims' sake. You know, this was and Neo knows this for a fact too. If he found Wendy, he'd be the first person to be crowing about it even more than I have. I'm very proud of this story. I think I should be.
Yeah.
And I'm very confident in it as well. But you know, I'm not going around trying to put a victim on everybody for Berkowitz. Now, having said that, I don't know if you've been hearing about the Bronx sniper case that Lorenzo and I are looking into. And did you hear about that case? Did I tell you about that?
I think only from either your video titles or from passing mentions that have come up, but I never in detail. No.
Well, just in a nutshell, and I'll get your preliminary thoughts on this, because again, I really respect your analysis, your mind, even though you're a youngin. Yeah. What are you, 20? You're 28, right? 29?
29, yeah, 29.
Oh, how I wish I was 29 again.
Well, when you say your age, I'm blown away.
Yeah, believe me, believe me, I feel it every morning when I wake up. But all the mistakes that I've made and all the things that I wish I could have done again. 29, you're such a baby. But the Bronx sniper case happened when Berkowitz was 17. It was a string of six attacks taking place in the same neighborhood that Berkowitz's father's hardware store was in. In the same summer that he was working for his father, 2 blocks away from where he was bar mitzvahed at his synagogue. It took place on 169th Street and Grant Avenue, just in the Bronx, just near the Grand Concourse, so a very large north-south thoroughfare. And it was a series of 6 sniper attacks where 6 mainly women, I think 1 man was shot, but it was mainly women, were shot with a rifle from a rooftop. And one girl, she was only 16, was murdered. A girl named Margaret Iglesias. She was shot by a bullet, fell on the ground, wasn't dead, and then the sniper then pumped another bullet into her, killing her. And the cops at the time thought that it was a teenager who had done it. The case went unsolved. I call it a son of Sam before Son of Sam. And it's another one of these things that actually Mike Lorenzo discovered this case. And we're pretty much 90 in the 90s convinced that at least we think that Berkowitz was the perpetrator, and we're trying to work behind the scenes to get a little bit more information out on it. But just, do you have any thoughts on that? Or
do you have a lot of survivors in that case?
We have 0. Well, yeah, a lot of survivors, only 6 people shot, 1 killed.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of thing that it makes me think that as an offender evolves, as he gets older, and as his methods start getting more effective, that he's going to realize shooting people at long range with a 22 isn't really working for him. He's not getting kills that way. He's getting 1, but it's a lot less reliable and a lot less effective, that he's going to change that modus operandi to be up close and personal using a high caliber weapon. There would be some things I'd be looking for in that. Do you have shell casings? Do we have any possible areas of, it's very unlikely that there's going to be some DNA in this case. But if you have shell casings in this case, you might get a partial print. You might get a touch DNA sample or something like that. And it can be very hard to definitively link a crime spree without those really solid pieces of scientific evidence.
Right,
But
exactly.
it makes sense in the trajectory of the offender's life that he's going to start at. It's a very disconnected, impersonal way to kill somebody. It's a very small caliber weapon. Back then, there were no surveillance camera. It would be very easy to get away with something like that. It doesn't surprise me he was never identified at all, and it shows kind of a hesitance. It's not the same type of boldness that you're seeing with Son of Sam, where he's coming up and just unloading the cylinder into the car, but it doesn't mean it's not the same guy. It shows an evolution.
Right. Interesting thoughts. Yeah. And that's why I'm glad that we're talking about this, because again, I'm not saying that it was Berkowitz, but it's another one of these cases that coming out of the mind of Lorenzo, and then him and I are talking about it, and it just has a feel to it. And when they arrested Berkowitz, they found a .22 rifle with a scope that was able to be disassembled. It's not the same gun. We've run serial number dates. It couldn't. His gun was manufactured in 1973, but it's interesting that he did have in his possession a .22 with a rifle scope that could be disassembled, which would have been the type of weapon that the Bronx sniper used. And Berkowitz also had, and vouchered, I just recently put this out, it was unknown until about a week ago, that he had in his possession, they vouchered in his apartment, 100-yard rifle target practice sheets. So he was a rifle guy. I mean, again, we're just spitballing here, but so far there's been nothing to rule him out. And again, you have geography, just the nature of 2 blocks from where he was bar mitzvahed, 9 blocks from his hardware store. He was there that summer. He was working. I have in his own handwriting that he was a clerk at his father's store that summer when this all occurred. And so, again, this is something that we're thinking of. And my attitude is, even if we can't prove it was him, if Berkowitz did do this, then he's going to know that we know. And that's going to cause him a lot of consternation. And that makes me feel good.
And it's also nice just to have someone looking at the case again, even if it is or isn't Berkowitz. The fact, I mean, this guy's never been identified. And justice still, these people who were shot, person that was killed, they deserve to have that truth come out. And if it's not Berkowitz, great, but let's find this guy. And I think without that possible Berkowitz connection, no one would be looking at it. And
exactly.
So there's some value in that for whoever it was, it would be nice if the people who were shot can be given that that revelation. And I think the signature is very similar. I'm not a law enforcement investigator, and I'm not a criminology degree master of this stuff. And if anyone knows if I'm wrong here, you can feel free to correct me. I don't mind being wrong at all, and I'm not clinging to anything. But the signature is very similar. That it's random shootings. I mean, why is this guy doing this? He's getting his jollies by killing innocent people, random people in the streets.
Right.
So whoever he is, and I think there's nothing that rules out a 17-year-old for sure.
Well, there were a few articles about this at the time. It even made it into the New York Times, a very Son of Sam-esque article about how this string of shootings was actually really making the neighborhood paranoid, and they set up a hotline. They had a reward, everything. It was like, that's why I call it a Son of Sam before Son of Sam, because it was actually localized rather than citywide, which then goes to your point also of the beginnings, and then in Son of Sam it's escalated out, just like with a firearm and proximity to the victim. So interesting. I'm glad we're having this discussion, because it makes me think of him even more. But the cops, in one of the articles that I've read on this, on the various shows that I've done on this, the cops said, we think that this guy is a teenager. So they were saying that it was a teenager, and Lorenzo, whose opinion I respect more than anybody, he said, the detectives in that neighborhood, it was a bad neighborhood. They had 1 million informants. Everybody was dropping dime on everybody. And nobody liked these shootings. If people actually knew who it was, in other words, if it was somebody from that neighborhood who lived there, that they would have been caught. So because he didn't live in that neighborhood,
Mm,
that's also, and
commuter.
he was unknown, right? That also
Yeah.
tends towards it. It's just about signature and feel that
Mhm.
I'm going for on this. So, we're trying to do our thing behind the scenes, trying to make some things happen, which I don't want to talk about publicly. But at the very least, I'm hoping to get the name of where Margaret Iglesias was shot and killed. I'm hoping to get that street renamed in her honor,
Nice.
because it is a historical case that really should be talked about more, because it was
Yeah.
really, as I say, a son of Sam before Son of Sam. Even if Berkowitz didn't do it, it was still the same sort of thing about a sniper doing random shootings, terrorizing a neighborhood, unheard of in New York City until, of course, 6 years later, when the Son of Sam, David Berkowitz, started doing it, and with his first victim, Wendy Savino.
It also makes you wonder too, like, and along the same lines of that, Savino, like, where are the Bronx snipers' other offenses? He stops after 6 and he never strikes again. I mean, where did he go?
Well,
And
he went to the army. Berkowitz went into the army
yeah,
right after.
yeah, where did this mysterious offender that we don't know where he went? I mean, where did he go and why did he never strike again? Is it possible that he did strike again and he's the Son of Sam? Um, so this type of thing, whenever we see like a cessation of these offenses, you got to wonder, like, why did this guy stop? And in this case, maybe he didn't stop. I mean, it's hard to say.
Well, but to your point again, he stopped in the immediate aftermath. If just let's say it's Berkowitz, because he enlisted in the army a few months after that summer.
Yeah. how many lies? We're not lying about anything. We haven't lied once.
This guy is obsessed with the fact that I lie about everything, when I've never lied about one thing in this entire 5 years of video series. When I was 10 years old, they used to have these PSAs, public service announcements, these commercials here in New York City, and said, when you tell one lie, it leads to another. It was like this to teach kids not to lie. And that made sense to me. Not that I was a lying kid, but I, at that point, I was like, you know what? It just makes sense to tell the truth about everything, because then you don't have to remember the lies you've told.
Yeah.
So I've never lied about anything in this video series. And I certainly wouldn't have friends like Mike Lorenzo and the people that I worked with in NYPD and the Bronx District Attorney if I was this known liar. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much I mean, I don't know if you guys have access to any holdback information. When you said that the Bronx sniper, the police believed he was a teenager, I wonder why did they come to that conclusion? Is there something else we don't know?
Well, Lorenzo, that's why Lorenzo said you should be a cop. Exactly. There must be some detective report where somebody caught a glimpse of somebody running away or something like that.
Yeah, who knows what it could be, but there's a reason why they thought that. Because maybe it's just that it's a small caliber rifle, it's a 22, it's a very disconnected, cowardly way to strike. But I do wonder, why they thought that. Neo is just jealous.
Maria is my friend. No, but agree. Agree. They had to have thought that for some reason. Because why would you just say why wouldn't you say it was a Vietnam vet coming back from Vietnam, or it was a 25-year-old? Like, saying that it was a teenager is pretty specific. So that's a really good point that you make.
Yeah, I think that someone with actual trained professional rifle experience would know to use a high caliber rifle or a high powered rifle like a 7.62 or 30-06 like that, because the efficacy of that weapon is significantly less than using a high caliber sniper rifle.
Right, exactly. So yeah, Neo's taking over the chat. It's hilarious. I love it. He doesn't understand actually how much that I find it entertaining. What does Maria say before? Police aren't interested since he's in jail already. Besides, too much work to remove the remaining dust from the rug. Yeah, you may have a point, but listen, Maria, Detective Klein was very interested in when we brought him the Savino case, which was almost just as old, and it wasn't even a murder involved. It was an attempted murder. So, we think that there has to be somebody out there in NYPD who would be very interested in this as a cold case. So again, like I said, we're doing our thing behind the scenes. Lorenzo and I are very interested in this, and we're going to go out and do a walk and talk in the area, and he'll, so when that comes out, Nuke Hoax, maybe we'll do a reaction video to it. Nice. Because we'll have more information, and you'll be able to see the scenes where it all happened, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So my friend, I think we have reached the end. This was a fantastic show. I'm so glad that my audience got a chance to experience the uniqueness and great mind that is Nuke Hoax, Vince McConnell. And so why don't you tell the audience where they can find you, and again, what you're doing out there in your little corner of the internet, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay, so I think that there is a link Manny mentioned in my channel. It was just really cool to come on here and talk with you guys anytime we're talking about this kind of topic, because there's so much misinterpretation on the internet about how to deal with research in criminal cases, that I think someone's got to shout it from the rooftops about, what are composite sketches, and how to objectively and scientifically try to look at what little evidence we often have. And with murders, there's generally very scant evidence, and we have to piece together that narrative based on true information and not what we think or feel as much as possible. And it's cool to see you moving up. Like, Manny, I was watching that documentary on Netflix. I was in here every night. I would put on the episode, and my wife was sleeping, and I was like, "Look, Manny's on TV." Cool, like a half a second. But it was great to see that. And I think there's something to be said about people who come into this scene with integrity, and people who come in with a transparent quest for honesty and truth, that they excel in the world. Like, you're going to start getting these opportunities to be on television. You're going to start gaining traction as a genuine historian that I've always considered you to be. Like, when your intentions are noble, you reap rewards. And so, for Neo to say you're this terrible liar and everything, I disagree. And I think that your track record will indicate that. So
yeah, I mean, it's just jealousy and also projection. I don't take it very seriously. Well, thank you so much, Nuke Hoax, for those kind words and for joining us today. I'm sure the audience loved you. They'll go check out your site and subscribe to your channel. And hopefully we'll do more as things come across my desk. I'll certainly reach out, and consider yourself part of the Grossman Files family. So, my friend, I'm going to just see you off and hang out, though, so we could say goodbye when I sign off. But thanks so much for being here, my man.
Thank you, Manny.
You're very welcome. All right, guys. Well, that was an awesome show. So glad to platform one of the great minds out there. You guys got to go check out his channel. His channel's in the description. Nuke Hoax Returns. He's very unique and talented individual. And as you can see, he's got a very analytical mind, very logical, extremely intelligent. And like I said, he even gets the Mike Lorenzo endorsement, which is actually a huge honor. And so hopefully we start to see him in more things, and hopefully at some point the Netflix people discovers him as a talking head as well, because he certainly deserves it. All right, and to that end, I will say thank you very much. I got one live stream coming up this week with John Catalano. We're going to add to our Brooklyn series, and I'm supposed to be on New York City Crime Spot to talk about Bronx Sniper, and to talk about the Netflix documentary a little bit more on his channel. So check out for those. I'll put the links up when they are available. So I want to say thank you, and we will see you on the next episode of the Grossman Files. Thank you so much, everybody.